Hello viewers and welcome to another episode of FEAI. Today we have with us Manoj Mohan, Executive Director, ViceTech, SPJIMR. Let's hear from him. Manoj, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sarita.
Love you to begin with telling us a little bit of what ViceTech is all about.
So ViceTech is a very interesting initiative done by SPJIMR. As you all know, SPJIMR is the top ranked based school in the country. And when we looked at what can we do, where is the next generation of young learners in the management education field are coming in, one important area that we honed in was startup and entrepreneurship. Now, as you know, India has a very robust startup ecosystem, but there are still a lot of white spaces. One of the white spaces is, what do you do once a startup comes out of an incubator? They need a lot of handholding and support. So we started up setting startup accelerators, and slowly and steadily that evolved into an entire Wise Innovation studio. And Wise Innovation being purposeful innovation done for the right reasons and the right path. So ViceTech that I head stands for Wise Innovation Studio for Emerging Technologies, where we work with a variety of startups to give them coaching, support, connect, and also commingle them with our students so that students get a real feel of the startup culture. So ViceTech is on a mission to bring and make SPGen ground zero of startup ecosystem.
I like that, ground zero of startup ecosystem. This particular forum where you are with us as a guest mainly talks about ethics and ethics in AI, and I come across so many startups that are having AI integrated into their innovations. I mean, today we cannot think of innovations without deep tech or tech at all, right?
Correct.
How do you perceive the world of AI in innovation?
So funny you may ask, so I sit through roughly 500 startup pitches every year, all right? And it's come so much to a point that 60% of the pitches have some AI into it. And I jokingly tell people that, you know, just because you call AI doesn't necessarily make it AI. Similar, 25 years back when the dot-com bubble was rising, people just randomly put .com into the company name and listed. Right?
I remember that, yes.
Yeah, I jokingly tell people that, if you want to form the biggest AI, then look at Air India. It has AI already in its name.
That's a good one.
So don't walk in and say I'm AI and it doesn't make you AI, because the simplest thing that what people don't understand is, for any artificial intelligence algorithm to run, you need billions of data, millions at the very minimum. Most of these startups don't have that kind of data. So you're not really doing AI, you're at best doing a decision-making algorithm. That's very simple. So if you were to ask me, what do I see AI in innovations in India? I see three buckets. I see a lot of people who claim to have AI but don't really have anything to do with AI, right? They are chatbots at best. Then there is a second category, which is the majority, which I call as consumers of AI. So today, if you use a large learning model, LLM, effectively ChatGPT in some form or shape, you're not AI. People say it's AI. That's already become a commodity. Using a LLM model is a commodity today. Most of the innovation is happening there. And then there is a cutting edge 10%. Unfortunately, most of it is happening in the US, I must say, which are what I call as creators of AI. Creators of the next generation who was working on the next algorithms. You don't see too many of them in India. Not yet. At least I haven't seen in my 500 odd interviews.
Yeah. Oh my, I think you have busted the myth about what AI is all about in India and in the startup world.
So I wouldn't say busted, it's a little overrated.
Yeah, overrated. And where do you see ethics coming in? How ethically valid are when they position themselves, we run an AI innovated dream?
Ethics is a very, very hard, abstract and heavy word. As you told me that we will do this session, I've been thinking hard what ethics mean, because when you are and I come from with an investment banking background, one of the most highly regulated, where you just don't need to often look at the what's legally right. Often you are penalized for not being morally right. World over there are plenty of examples, right? So what's right and wrong? For example, if somebody fires someone from a job, that's right for the shareholders. What about the employee? That's wrong. So when you look at right and wrong, it's very hard because without a context. But what you can though rely on is there are certain universal principles. For example, principles of equity, principles of no harm being done, principles of natural justice. So when I look at AI and ethics, I look at those broad guiding principles to make a sensible decision whether something is right or wrong. Yes, of course, goes without saying, if a startup is claiming it is AI and it is not doing AI, I don't think that is ethical. In fact, I have a huge grouse with the statement that fake it till you make it. You know, it's almost, people commonly say that it's okay, and I'm not okay with that. Because that's not the right culture you're building. Because culture of any organization gets built by the smallest of the actions that you take, and you repeatedly do it. As you say, right, what you think is what your behavior, and your behavior drives your action, and your action drives your destiny. So when I look at ethical, I think people need to take a more nuanced view on, are you being equitable? Are you being fair? What statements you make, is it going to harm somebody? Because if you say you are you're AI and you're not AI, and a company and an investor invests in you, they will take a loss. So that's not fair.
Yeah. No, so that brings me to the next question, because you also wear the hat of an academician, right, in one of the most prestigious colleges of the country. How do you see the role of academics or educational institutions or even students in driving the whole concept of ethics in AI?
So if you look at academic world and AI, I think academic world is going through a massive upheaval, if I may say. So I sit through many of these forums where a lot of the universities around the world are struggling to contain the amount of AI usage. I'll give you an example. We are running a context and we invited essays from universities and students around the world. And funny, there is a software when you run these essays, it will tell you how much is the AI generated content and how much is plagiarism. Now, plagiarism is not really copying from each other, but you're literally taking it from websites as it is. And those technology exists, and universities are hence taking an approach that let's police and control this. And my view is slightly different. This is my personal view. I don't say this for my institution. I tell my fellow colleagues that why don't we go back 25 years when internet first came. Before that, people used to literally read from the books, and then you could do Google. What happened at that point of time, and I'm sure if you ask professors at that time, they weren't happy. They weren't happy that students could go search anything from internet and give an answer, right? So they were just not happy, but they adapted. They had to adopt because the technology will make you adopt. So my view is all universities need to now accept that AI is a part of the real world. But the problem why they are resisting is the way they are teaching is getting disrupted. So you have to go back and ask as a faculty, as a professor, what is your true dharma, if I may say? It is to get an independent thinking in your student, is to get them to have the right knowledge and apply that knowledge with their own independent thinking. AI can't do that. But for that, you need to change the way you are teaching, change the way you test them, change the way you are, assessing their whole thing. Now that's not easy. AI entire thing 2 years back, 3 years back, we never had ChatGPT, right? We never even thought this is possible. In fact, I written an article where if you go to one of the popular books, 10 years back they felt, the book was published in 2014, they said AI is a remote possibility not happening in our lifetime. This is 2014 and we're sitting in 24. AI is already around us. So I think universities slowly and steadily get there. But right now, as with any change, human beings are resistant to change. None of us like changes. We are resisting it. So are all the professors and universities around the world, except for a select set of people. But slowly and steadily, they are accepting it. And I think the entire pedagogical method around the world will change.
We'll have to change and adapt to the way the technology is moving. So that brings me to the last question. How do you think communities like FEAI can work with the likes of maybe institutions like you to create this awareness about what ethics in AI is all about, and maybe also develop a framework to adapt to it and also ensure that we stay ethical in this whole pathway? Any thoughts?
So, tough question, really tough question, because frankly, globally, people are still focused on the big picture ethical questions about AI. Is AI even actually good for mankind? Those kind of problems we are dealing with. I don't have a hard answer, but I can suggest some directions and dimensions to think. People like FEAI, for example, organization that you're doing, it's very important because the first thing of putting an ethical framework is to have dialogues going on. You need to have more and more dialogues. And for any framework to work, you need a multi-partisan support, which means everybody needs to be heard. Yet you need to arrive at a compromise. For example, today you have US Fed, you have RBI in India. Do you know that US Fed in the first 1918 crisis was not there? It was JP Morgan who stepped up and then created US Fed. So you had a crisis. So what I truly look at is, as humanity dealing with a disruptive technology like AI, the question is, are you going to wait for a crisis to form a policy, or can you do it before? The way things are going, I think we're going to wait for a crisis. You can perhaps play a role in not having that coming in.
Very well said, and that is something that we would look forward to, and I think that's the whole idea behind FEAI, not to wait for a crisis, but be there out as a first thought and not as an afterthought. Thank you very much. Thanks to viewers for listening in. This was Manoj Mohan from SPJIMR. Thank you.